The Gospel according to John, chapter 12.
Glory to you, O Lord.
Now among those who went up to worship at the festival were some Greeks. They came to Philip, who was from Bethsaida in Galilee, and said to him, "Sir, we wish to see Jesus." Philip went and told Andrew, and then Andrew and Philip went and told Jesus. And Jesus answered them, "The hour has come for the Son of Man to be glorified. Very truly I tell you, unless a grain of wheat falls into the earth and dies, it remains just a little grain. But if it dies, it bears much fruit. Those who love their life will lose it. Those who hate their life in this world will keep it for eternal life. Whoever serves me must follow me. Where I am, there will my servant be also. Whoever serves me, the Father will honor." Now, my soul is troubled. What should I say? "Father, save me from this hour"? No, it is for this reason that I have come to this hour. Father, glorify your name. Then, all of a sudden, a voice came from heaven. "I have glorified it, and I will glorify it again." The crowd standing there heard it and said, "It was thunder." Others said, "An angel has spoken to him." And Jesus answered, "This voice has come for your sake, not for mine. Now is the judgment of the world. Now the ruler of this world will be driven out. And I, when I am lifted up from the earth, will draw all people to myself." He said this to indicate the kind of death he was to die. The Gospel of our Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
Please be seated. In today's Gospel passage, we read a familiar story, but a kind of a slightly different take on it. It's a passage that, it's one of the few passages that is reported in all four of the Gospel retellings. All of the disciples are telling and repeating this story, which is actually very rare. There's not that many stories that all of them touch on. And it's a moment as they're traveling to Jerusalem for a festival celebration. Jesus is going there to die. And there are some Greeks who have heard about who Jesus is. And they come to the disciples and they say, "Hey, we want to meet Jesus." The disciples are a little taken aback with this. They don't know what to do. They know that Jesus has done some strange things. Is he really going to do this? Meet with these unclean foreign people? They don't. First one doesn't know what to do, so he goes to another one. They go to another, and they have a little discussion about it. And they're like, "Hey, well, let's go talk and ask Jesus, see what he says." So they go and they tell Jesus that there were some Greek people here to see him. And Jesus, and he tends to do this, doesn't give them a direct answer. It would have been much easier if he said, "Sure, yes," or "No, I don't have time." But he doesn't even address directly the request of these people to see him. Instead, he speaks to a more important truth, a truth that the disciples need to grasp and understand. And so I thought today we could explore a little bit about what is this point that Jesus is trying to get across, especially as we are all going on our own Lenten journeys towards Easter. Jesus says to his disciples, unless a grain of wheat, a little seed, dies, it's just going to remain a little seed. But if it dies, it can bear much fruit, become something far more glorious. Guess what? I'm going to die. And you're going to die too. They're very stark words. It's not the first time Jesus mentions that he's going to die. And it's not the first time he mentions the disciples that they were going to have to go through a death as well. Troubling words. And so as I read this, I want to know, why is Jesus focusing on this? And I thought there are a couple of important observations that are to be made. The first, obviously, that Jesus is speaking metaphorically when he's speaking literally about himself. In a very short time, he's literally going to die. But he's going to tell the disciples they're going to have to die with him. He's speaking metaphorically. They're going to have to go through some kind of death as well, because they're serving him, and where he goes, they have to go also. But one of the stark things that stands out to me about Jesus' answer is that he is very vulnerable, and he openly confesses them, and he says, "Hey, I am troubled. My spirit is troubled. My soul is having a hard time with this." I know I'm going to die. I know it's going to be excruciating. I know it's going to be painful. This is hard for me. I'm so grateful that Jesus was bold enough to share his own feelings in this moment. Because as we face death, it is always traumatic. It's always hard. It's always difficult. And it's okay. Whenever we lose something that is important to us, it's normal to feel the pain of loss and that discomfort. As Christians, we do not celebrate death. We celebrate resurrection. It's okay to mourn and feel the real pain and loss of death. But we are willing to mourn and to feel this pain of death because death does not get the final word. There is something so much greater that is waiting for us. We are willing to give things up so that we can experience resurrection power in our life. Just like that seed that is buried comes to bear much fruit, our loss and our death bears more fruit than sometimes we can ever anticipate or imagine. And we have to be careful, though, that we don't glorify this process of dying, this process of being in pain, this process of suffering. Because Christians don't glorify pain. We don't glorify suffering. We glorify the resurrection that comes after. And then Jesus is telling his disciples, I'm going to die. This is why I've come. This is my purpose. And where I go, you will follow also. And he makes it very clear when he says, those who follow after me, they're going to have to lose their life. But you will gain something far greater, eternal life, if you are willing to follow after me. So what are some of the ways that we metaphorically die? Not physically, but as we are dying. And why is it so important for us to go through this? There are a number of reasons that I think that examples, and just name a few examples. One of the things that we can do is sometimes we are called to lose our identity. And this is what the answer that Jesus is giving to his disciples. You see, some people come to meet Jesus and the disciples don't know. Is it okay? Is it not okay? They've already been with him for 3 years and they haven't figured out that Jesus accepts everyone. How is it that they could be at this point after so much time with Jesus not figure out that Jesus really does want to talk to people? And they're keeping people at arm's length and saying, no, maybe it's not appropriate for Jesus to see these people. And so Jesus is saying, hey, you're going to need to die to your identity as Jewish people were chosen by God so that something greater can be given to you. This whole idea of being separate from other people has to die. It doesn't mean that it was bad to begin with. It doesn't mean that it wasn't part of your mission from God. But now, you are going to get a new mission from God. So that old identity has to be stripped away. Maybe God is calling us to the same thing. Maybe God's calling us to say, hey, we need to die to our identity as Alpine Lutheran Church so that something far more powerful can be resurrected. Sometimes change and loss is hard. It's not supposed to be easy. But just as it was gut-wrenching for Jesus, it can be difficult for us too. But God calls us to die to our very own identities. Oftentimes our very own false identity that's built on false truths, so that resurrection power can be unleashed in our lives. Maybe we need to die to vengeance, so that forgiveness can be seen by so many. Just yesterday, we celebrated St. Patrick's Day. And you guys know the story of St. Patrick, right? He was a young boy. He was 16 years old, living in Britain. And he was captured by Irish raiders, taken into slavery. For 6 years, he lived as a slave in Ireland. Eventually, he was able to escape in a boat and return home. And you can imagine how glorious it was for him to be reunited with family after 6 years. No contact, not knowing what was going on with them. He came home and he got his life back. He would later go on to study at university and seminary, become a monk. And after he was at a monastery when he got this call from God that he was to return to Ireland and to share with them the good news. Can you imagine how hard it was, how difficult that was for him? To have to give up his desire for vengeance, his desire for justice, his desire to have those people punished for the horrors that they had visited upon him. But he died for that need for vengeance, so that people could hear the good news. And he left his home voluntarily so that that could happen. Maybe we need to die to our own expectations for ourselves. Or maybe you need to die for the expectations for your kids and your grandkids, so that the fruit of something far different and more glorious can come. So that you can see and nurture a different kind of fruit than you ever expected to dream of. Dying to our expectations is one of the things that oftentimes God calls us to do. Just recently I was watching the movie The Hobbit. And in the movie The Hobbit, if you're familiar with the story, Bilbo Baggins is going on a journey, kind of like we're going on a journey during Lent, to help some 13 dwarves. And as he's going on the journey, there comes a point where there's a battle, and Bilbo is afraid, so he runs away. And after he's run away, he comes to think about it and regret his decision. So he goes back to help those dwarves who are about to lose, and plays a crucial role in them overcoming and finding victory. After the battle is done, Thorin, the leader of these dwarves, comes to Bilbo and he says, I need to know. I know you ran away. I know that you're a coward. But you came back. Why did you come back? I have to know. Why did you come back? And Bilbo answers, it is true I ran away. For often I think of home at Bag End and the wonderful people there, and my family, and the food, and my drawings, and my books. Oh, I love my books so much. It is true, I ran away, because I longed for my home. And as I was heading there, I thought, I love my home so much, but these dwarves do not have a home. Their home was stolen from them. I need to return and help them find a home as well. And that's why I came back. So often we ask the question, why do I need to die to this? Why do I have to experience the pain and loss of this world? Why does God just end it? Sometimes, even though we long to be home, we experience death and loss. We stick around so that other people can find a home. That's what dying to self means. We give up something powerful inside of us, something that we hold dear, so that in dying, a greater fruit can happen in our lives. Amen? Amen. I want us to take a moment right now, to bow your heads, a moment of silence, and ask God to show you what it is that you need to die to. Lord, we thank you for this Lenten journey that we are on. We confess to you our anxiety, our fears, our discomfort. When we talk about death and dying, it is worrisome to us. And just as it was difficult for Jesus, it is difficult for us. So we need your help. We need your courage. We need your guidance. We need your Spirit to show us what is it that is taking hold of our hearts and our minds and our lives. What is it that we need to die to, so that resurrection power can be unleashed in our lives. In Jesus' name. Amen. Let's look at our takeaways real quick for today. It was soul-wrenching for Jesus to die. It will be difficult for us as well. We are called on our Lenten journeys, on our journeys of faith, to die to ourselves, and that is always hard. It's okay to acknowledge that. It's okay to share that with someone else, so that someone can help carry your burden, so someone can give you the encouragement to loan you the strength that you might need. The second one, Christians do not celebrate death. We cannot confuse that. We celebrate resurrection power. We go through this process of death, and we are willing to give things up, to lose ourselves, so that something far greater can be unleashed in our lives. And the third one, these are some of the reasons I mentioned about why we died to self. For freedom, so that things cannot control our hearts. To build our own faith, because through this process we learn to trust God in intimate ways that we couldn't imagine. We do this so that resurrection power can be unleashed in our lives, and we do it so that others will have hope. Stand with me for our song of the day.